I'm gonna keep this as simple as I can and as casual spoken so I can give the most, raw answers. I'm gonna repeat the question first, and I'm gonna give an answer. Number one, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I go to ISAPA, International School of Pristina. I'm an international student from America, but I'm originally of Albanian ethnicity. I study natural sciences at ISAPA, the International School of Pristina. My favorite subjects have to be probably geography, biology. I liked history when we had it, but we don't have it anymore. My hobbies or interests, I have to say music. I love music, all types of genres. My taste is very diverse. I also like to watch documentaries in my free time, you know, anything from Vice, anything from Al Jazeera. I like to educate myself whilst, having a having a fun time, watching these documentaries. It interests me. The titles, they have some pretty nice topics. Number two, what languages do you use in your daily life? Number one, at home, I'd have to say it's really a mix. Depends on who I'm talking with. When I tend to talk with my parents, we switch back and forth from Albanian to English. We don't really have a single language that we speak. Number two, at school or at university, I'd say at school, when it comes to talking with friends, I use Albanian a lot more. Um, but when it comes to learning and giving answers during class, a majority of the time I speak in English because I'm more well spoken in English. With friends, as I mentioned earlier, I tend to speak Albanian at school with my friends, but with my friends out of school, I tend to speak English more often. Language background. Number three, can you tell me the story of how you learned the languages you speak? Well, first of all, English I learned because I lived in America for about 13 years. It was my one of my first languages. I studied 13 years in English. I communicated with people 13 years in English. I finished all of my homework for 13 years in English. I studied for 13 years in English. Whenever I left the house, I went to go buy something, needed to talk to someone, communicate, I used English. I learned Albanian because it was also one of the first languages I spoke at home with my family, and whenever I came to Kosovo for the summer. Number four, which language feels closest to you and why? For me personally, I'd have to pick English. I feel closer to English because, it was one of the languages that I spent more time speaking in. It's one of the it's one of the languages that are more diverse when it comes to explaining emotions. And I just feel that I'm more well spoken in English because it was one of my first languages after all, and I don't really know how to explain it. I use it a lot for everything. I feel like a lot more stuff are accessible in English when it comes to internet, social media, movies, shows, news, books, all of that. It's more accessible in English, so I spend a lot more time consuming media, consuming, information in English. And yeah, pretty much that's the main reason why I feel closer to English. Those are the couple of main reasons. Number five, have your language preferences changed over time? Not at all. I don't think so, honestly. I've always loved English, it's definitely a language I feel more comfortable speaking in. But at one point I did like to speak Albanian more often, especially when I was in America, because it gave people that perspective that I was more different from them and that I could speak in secret so they would understand what I'm saying with other people that spoke Albanian. But it's obviously shifted now that I live in Albania, and it's not that special anymore. Were there important moments that influenced this? Um, like I said, yeah, I mean, it was all about the community. It's all about, at one point it was, about how people perceive me. Now it's honestly my, I don't know, my mindset has shifted. I don't really care how people perceive me anymore. I just speak English because I prefer English now, and I speak it more often because I feel more I feel that in English, I'm more well spoken. I can speak more openly. My vocabulary is more, expanded, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of reasons. Did family, teachers, media, travel, or friends affect this? Yes, it did. It did a lot. When I came to Kosovo, I feel like I kind of lost, my connection and my knowledge in English. I feel like uh, I feel like ever since I came here and I started speaking more Albanian, that part of English that really shaped me, started shifting away. I started forgetting certain words in English. My accent slipped away. Um, sometimes it's even harder for me to think in English. And so I kind of just feel stuck between the two languages. I just don't really know which one I feel more used to in or which one I, prefer more. It just gives me really stuck, perspective all of it. Do you feel emotionally connected to certain languages? No. I wouldn't say there's an emotional connection to this because emotion is something that, for me personally, does not have to do with languages. But when it comes to explaining emotion, I personally believe that English does it better because, like I mentioned earlier, it has that diversity, that emotional diversity that Albanian just doesn't have. Language uses in everyday life. How do you decide which language to use in different situations? Well, first of all, look at my surroundings. Where am I? Who's around me? What are the people around me speaking? If they speak English, my initial reaction is to respond in English. If they speak Albanian, then of course I'm going to respond in Albanian. But other than that, I like to use English a lot when I joke. In joking matters, I feel that I'm a more funny person in English than I am in Albanian. I'd say I'm funny in both, but I definitely say I'm more funny in English than I am in Albanian. Number seven, do you ever mix languages when speaking? Yes, a lot, especially with people that know both of the languages that I know. I feel more comfortable mixing them because, I know that they'll understand me anyway. So if I speak in English, they'll understand. If I speak in Albanian, they'll understand it. If I mix them up, they're gonna understand it. So I feel like that also gives me more comfort because if I don't know a word in English, I'll switch in Albanian. If I don't know a word in Albanian, I'll switch in English. So it gives me that good it gives me leverage in both languages. Eight, do you use language differently? Number one, with friends versus teachers. Yes, I do. With friends, it's a more casual spoken way. It's a joking man. When I joke around, I speak more casually, use more slang. I mean, everyone does when it comes to, staying with people that are closer. Whereas when I stay with teachers or, people of more authority, I tend to use, a more formal way of speaking. I throw in some more advanced words and whatever I know from my vocabulary. Uh, I keep that filter too. I try to maintain respect whilst, keeping that comfort between the conversation. Online versus offline. Online, I definitely feel like I'm more unfiltered. It just gives me the leverage of, being able to say stuff behind a screen without, fully facing what's going to happen, the outcome of what I've said. Whereas offline in real life, I'm assuming that means, the moment you say something, you're going to have an immediate reaction back and you're going to immediately have to deal with that reaction. So your mind immediately has to snap back and has to take whatever the person responds and has to process whatever the person responds immediately. Informal versus informal situations. Informal situations, I like to use longer words, more advanced words in the English level. I don't know. I just believe that, I believe that it intimidates people I talk to. Whereas in formal situations, I tend to speak it with people I'm more comfortable with. Where even if I were to just blabber words or stutter 100 million times, they would still understand me because they've learned that the way I speak and the mistakes I make. So even when I make mistakes, their mind automatically fills in what I meant to say. Nine, how do other people react when you switch or mix languages? I've noticed in Albania, in Kosovo, I mean, my bad. In Kosovo, they immediately say, speak Albanian. You're in Albania. We're not in America. We're in Kosovo. So speak Albanian. No reason to, use English or stick with one language. I've also heard people laugh. They say it's a very common thing to happen for people that know two languages, and so they laugh. They think it's a funny matter, not in an insulting way. Just and when you see something familiar, it makes you want to laugh because it gives you that sort of dopamine with the familiarity and all of that. Language success and opportunity. Number 10. Which languages do you think are most important for success in Kosovo today? Honestly, if I had to say, there's three. Well, obviously Albanian, because it's the main language spoken in Kosovo. Number two, I would say is English, due to our close ties with countries like America, all the countries that have helped us in the past that we have to communicate with, that we have ambassadors from, that we have people coming from work from. Then for the same reasons, I have to say German as well. German is also those languages I believe that will become pretty prominent in the world like English. And so Kosovo, with the mass immigration of Albanians going to Germany and, diplomatic relations with Germany, I believe that we should also maintain German the same way that we learn and educate our people to speak English. And 11. What does speaking English or another foreign language say about a person? Not sure I understand the question. What does speaking English or another foreign language say about a person? I'm assuming this means like a person that's bilingual and knows two languages. I personally say this means they have the ability, to be more open-minded. They they have they have better communication skills than other people, and they tend to see patterns probably a lot more often because of, the way language and linguistics work. If I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of things that language can say about a person, but I'm not really educated on this topic. I'd only be able to speak from my personal opinion. I'm not sure. So, do people judge others based on how they speak? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we see it day to day, and I see it day to day in my daily life. Especially when I came to Kosovo for the first time, people said I spoke, my Albanian was broken. I threw in ruz instead of ruz. I was unable to roll my R's, so that was pointed out a lot. The accent was a big problem up until my second or third year, where I really got used to language because I spoke it a lot. Um, I also see friends here that joke around with other friends. For example, Kosovar, an Albanian Kosovar, making fun of not making fun, but joking around with another Albanian Kosovar because their English is slightly worse than the person joking around with them English is. You know what I'm trying to say? And I never feel, I don't know. There are times where it's hurtful judgment, but I feel like most of the time it's just judgment for entertainment or joking around or what do I know. 13. Have you ever felt advantaged or disadvantaged because of the language you speak? No, absolutely not. I believe that I have the two languages that are the most important to me, and I have the capacity to learn a lot more in the future, hopefully. But I do feel advantaged actually. Now that I reread it, I feel advantaged for knowing English because it's a global language. Wherever you go in the world, a majority of people are going to know English, if not fluently, some words, a couple of words, especially the newer generation because they stay more on the internet, they stay more on social media. So all of the media they consume is usually in English because the easier it's the easier language to come across, especially when on the internet. Identity and self-expression. How would you describe yourself in terms of identity? I'd say I know who I am. I'd say I know my personality. I'd say I know what I do when I do it. I'd say I know why I do it when I do it. Um, but it has changed over time, especially, with the environment and all of that. My natural environment has shaped my identity a bit, but I do believe that my identity can change depending on the people I stay with. For example, obviously, when I stay with people that speak Albanian, I have a different identity in Albanian than I'd have in English. And I've had a conversation like this with one of my friends a couple of days ago. I told him, if you think I'm funny in Albanian, you should see how funny I am in English. And so I don't know, this just reminded me of that moment. 15, do languages play a role in who you are? Absolutely, I believe so. I don't know, I feel more well spoken in English. You know, I'm more social in English. I'd rather talk to a person that I don't know in public in English than I talk to them in Albanian. Because once I kick up that conversation in English, I'm gonna know how to hold it. I'm gonna know what words to expect. I'm gonna know what accents, what dialects to expect in English. When it comes to Albanian, uh, it's I don't know. I get blocked up. I can get mixed up. It gets harder for me to process the words, etc., etc. I'm good at understanding, but there's just times where I can't really can't really fully understand, fully comprehend what someone is saying to me. But anyway, beside the fact, where were we? Forgot. 16, do you feel different when speaking different languages? No, I think I feel the same, but depending on the situation and the pressure that's put on me, uh, I feel like that's what affects me more when it comes to speaking, the mental pressure or even psychological pressure in certain cases, because, languages don't really hold that much leverage on me unless, someone's expecting a direct and an immediate answer in a certain language. Number 17, do you express different sides of yourself in different languages? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I absolutely do, I have a different personality in Albanian and I have a different personality in English. And I think I'd say they merge when I mix up the languages. So that's why I do feel comfortable. I do feel more comfortable with people that understand both. 18. Do you feel more connected to local culture, global culture, or both? As I mentioned earlier, one of my hobbies was watching documentaries, consuming media, consuming news. So I'd honestly say global culture. I love seeing unfamiliar things. I love keeping that open mind. I love consuming and immersing myself in different cultures. Uh, in fact, one of my biggest passions is to travel, take education from other countries than just from one singular country or two singular countries. 19, has language influenced how other people see you? Yes, it has. When I speak English and I speak more professionally English, people see me as smarter. They see me uh, as a more loquacious person. They see me as, a more educated person because I'm obviously better in English. But whereas in Albanian, I speak Albanian more informally than I usually speak formally, so they probably see me, a little bit at a lower educated part, not a less educated part, obviously, than English. And Yeah, that's about all I have to say. Global and local connections. 20. Do you feel connected to global culture such as social media, music, movies, or trends? Absolutely. I love music. I love movies. I love shows. I love, all of this digital art. It's all beautiful to me, and it's something I feel very connected to. It's something I love to, distract myself and entertain myself with, especially music. And at one point, I really love movies. I watched about 3 movies every day at one point, all types of movies from all different countries and all different languages. And, it's just, these are things I really can't explain with words. 21. What role does language play in that connection? Honestly, absolutely nothing. When it comes to music, it really is just sound. What sounds better? What can sound good? It could literally be just a ball falling on the floor, and if it sounds good, it's gonna sound good. The language really doesn't matter. I listen to music from Mexico, listen to music from America, from Japan, from China, from Germany, all types of music. The language really doesn't matter. It's just the sounds which are made and obviously one of the things is rhyme and the flow and the rhythm of the words being said. Obviously that makes a connection, but you know, I don't really understand anything, so something that the artist, kind of comes up with. 22. Do you ever feel tension between local and global identities? I do. I feel like they shift back shift back from one another. For example, when I speak Albanian a lot, my English moves away. I get worse at English. I stutter more often. I lose words. You know, I can't really speak my mind freely because those words don't come to mind. Whereas if I spoke English more often, then I'd be more well spoken in English, where I would stutter more in Albanian, mispronounce letters as I did in the beginning, and, just the usual of what I would do if, like I mentioned, for English. Change over time. Have your views about language changed as you have grown older? If, yes, but I feel it's something that came with experience. Uh, as a child, I thought I spoke Albanian good, but when I came here, my perspective completely changed. When I came here, I knew that I was absolutely nowhere. But I've also opened my mind to learn more languages. Obviously, when you're a child and you're unfamiliar and, culture of different people is mainly kept as a taboo thing. Your parents tell you, no, you shouldn't, they're not any different from you. You shouldn't really mention culture. You shouldn't mention language. You shouldn't mention ethnicities. It's kind of kept as a taboo topic, not in a, bad way, but just in a, because you're a kid and you might misuse it. But I've really, gained interest in languages. I want to learn more languages before I die as I grow older. I'd like to speak a couple more languages, and I have some on my list that I'm probably gonna learn by the time I grow up. Do you think your language use will change in the future because of career goals? No. Honestly, I think English would probably be the best pick for my career goals, especially because it's such a global international language. Everyone communicates in it. There's always the people that are in my job, the people that are in my field, probably can communicate in it, speak in it, etc. Number two, education. Possibly. This one is possibly because I would like to study outside, somewhere far away, and possibly certain courses could be taught in that language. But I would absolutely love to learn the language if I'm studying there. So it won't really be a problem for me, but it can be one of those things that will interfere with my current languages. But other than that, I hope to find an English speaking major because I tend to learn better in English. but I'm always open and willing to learn another language as well. Migration or travel? Depends. Depends. I love to learn phrases from other countries so I can use them when I get to the country. But I'd honestly say that I'd communicate mainly in English because if I were stranded and I have certain questions I wouldn't be able to say in that person's native language, I would immediately swap back to English. And so, like I mentioned earlier, 100 times till now, English is a global language, and at least one person in every situation should be able to understand English, if not completely, in it's in minor parts and certain words make those connections. 25. Is there anything about language in Kosovo that you think people misunderstand? Well, I mean, Kosovo has this very closed mindset, I'd say. They don't like to, they don't really like to, like I mentioned earlier in class, they say you're in Kosovo, speak Albanian. But I believe that people in Kosovo don't understand how small their country is, how unimportant their country is, especially when compared to superpowers like America, China, Russia, Germany, France, etc., etc. So they should really, broaden their mindset, be open to learning new languages, and not stay ignorant because they really don't understand the importance of global languages. 26. What would you change about languages? What would you change about how languages are valued in society? I would change education systems, honestly. The way they're taught are way lower than the way that they should be taught. A lot of people that I know that speak proper English speak it because not because they learn it in school or they learn it in courses, but because they watch YouTube videos, they watch movies, they watch shows, they listen to music, they read books. You know, the best way to learning a language is immersing yourself in the culture in which the language is taught. So when you watch TV shows, you really understand how people actually communicate rather than, learning a bunch of words, learning a bunch of tenses, and just bashing them together. So people really need to realize the importance of language and not rely on learning it through courses or by learning it through school or by, these obligatory educational methods, but by actually showing passion and showing interest in learning these languages. Closing 27. Is there anything else you would like to add? Uh, Honestly, no, a lot. This whole questionnaire pretty much covered everything you can about language and linguistics. I hope I responded good, but could always respond better. 28. Did we miss something important? Honestly, I'd like to mention my problem that I mentioned earlier. You know, when you focus more on one language, how you shift away from another one. So when I came to Kosovo, my English deteriorated while my Albanian, got better, but still not perfect. But that costed my English deteriorating, obviously. So that's one thing that should be mentioned, especially when it comes to people that are bilingual like me, is that, you got to pay the price.